Okay, great. So hi everyone, and welcome to news session for today's Yuki trade event focusing on the Chinese games market. And just a brief introduction of myself. I am Tianyi, the market lead of telecom and mobile services at Newzoo. But as a native Chinese speaker, I am also the market expert for the Chinese games market at Newzoo. So today I will be speaking about the Chinese games market and specifically the revenues and gamer demographics in China. And further in today's presentation, we will explore more on the rising opportunities in PC and console gaming in China, following the huge success of Genshin Impact, which is developed by the Chinese game studio MiHoYo. So first, please allow me to introduce Newzoo, our company. Newzoo is the destination for the games market insights. We are the world's most trusted and quoted source for games market insights and analytics. We'll help some of the world's largest entertainment, technology, and media companies to target their audience, track competitors, spot opportunities, and make strategical and financial decisions. And Newzoo services are centered around three main areas, which is the platform, the Newzoo platform, and our global market reports, consumer insights, and consultancy. And for today's presentation, we'll be featuring data and insights from one of our best known products, the Global Games Market Report, as well as data and insights from our consumer insights and the Newzoo platform. So first, let's take a look at China's games market in numbers. As we all know, China is the biggest games market in the world by revenues as well as number of players. In 2020, the market generated over $44 billion in consumer spending on video games, with mobile being definitely the biggest gaming platform in China, accounting for 66% of the total revenues in 2020. And this share is a lot higher than the global average. Globally, only 49% of the total games revenue came from mobile in 2020. And in China, the share was 66%. And despite the already big share, the mobile games market still saw strong growth in 2020, with nearly 32% year-on-year growth from 2019. And PC is the second biggest gaming platform in China, with $14 billion spending in revenue in 2020, accounting for 32% of the market in China, compared to 22% of the global average. And as we see, PC and mobile are actually pretty dominant in China's gaming market. And console comparatively is a relatively small market in China, with only 2% of China's total games revenue coming from the console platform in 2020. But the platform still saw the biggest growth, with nearly 40% up from the previous year. This growth was actually in large driven by the popularity of Nintendo Switch in China, thanks to its portability. And we will cover more on that topic in later sessions. Also, please note, guys, here our console gaming revenue data does not cover the grid market in China. So it only counts all the official sales from various console platforms in China. And if we zoom in on the Chinese gamers from tier 1 and tier 2 cities, aged from 10 to 50, aged from 10 to 50, half of them play only on mobile. And this further indicates that China is a mobile-first market. Now, in total, 73% of all survey respondents play on mobile, followed by 40% on PC and 19% on console. And 66% of all respondents spend equal time gaming on mobile, PC, and console. And when looking at the player demographics, we see that almost 50% of Chinese gamers are female. They do skew a little bit younger in both genders, with the majority in the 21 to 35 age group. Gamers aged above 35 account for 31% of all surveyed respondents, representing the second biggest age group in China. And if we look at the work situation, the family situation, and income, of course, gamers in tier 1 and tier 2 cities in China, these gamers are not so much different than the general online population. And now let's take a look at the gamer personas. So Newzoo's gamer segmentation identifies 8 different gamer personas among all gaming enthusiasts by evaluating their gaming, viewing, and owning behaviors. So compared to gamers in the UK and Japan, China has by far the most ultimate gamers, accounting for 25% of the total population for gamer enthusiasts who love all things around gaming. Ultimate gamers, they love everything about gaming in terms of playing, owning gaming hardware, and watching gaming content. And this is also reflected by the most popular gaming titles in China, such as League of Legends, Honor of Kings, PUBG Mobile, and Peacekeeper Elite, etc. So in general, compared to other markets, competitive and immersive game genres are way more popular in China, especially on mobile. And on the other hand, the second biggest persona, the subscriber, enjoys playing games, especially free-to-play titles, and will only spend on gaming hardware when necessary. In fact, if you look at these 3 countries, the subscriber ranks the top 2 across all the markets here. Notably, subscribers make it very interesting for companies to target for cloud gaming platforms and the gaming subscription services, because subscribers don't necessarily want to spend too much on gaming hardware, but then they value good quality gaming content a lot. So further zoom in on different gaming platforms, we see that ultimate gamers consist of the biggest gamer persona in China across all 3 gaming platforms. And the age gender splits across mobile, PC, and console are close to each other, while mobile gamers spend way more time gaming every week compared to PC and console gamers in China. If we look at the data, 61% of all mobile gamers in Tier 1 and Tier 2 cities in China game 3 hours or more every week. This is a lot higher than gamers from PC and console platforms. So after understanding the quantitative take on the Chinese games market, let's take a look at the macro trends in China. So one of the biggest milestones in China in 2020 was definitely the launch of Genshin Impact by Shanghai-based game company Mihoyo. This is the first AAA success by a Chinese games company in the world. What's more, Genshin Impact supports cross-play on PC, mobile, and PlayStation. It showcases the growing technical and marketing capabilities of Chinese games companies in the world. And its global success also puts AAA game development under the spotlight for many Chinese game companies, including big giants like Tencent and NetEase. We will cover that in a bit. And China's Genshin Impact's biggest market, especially on mobile, the game's success in China also shows the increasing appetite for premium gaming content in China. As some of you may already know, last week Genshin Impact launched a very big crossover event with KFC in China. Genshin Impact players were asked to visit certain KFC restaurants to get co-branded skins, and there were only a limited number of items available across different KFC restaurants, so players queued overnight for the event. And in the end, several places in China, including Shanghai and Hangzhou, had to cancel the event due to the violation of the local coronavirus measures, because there were just too many people queuing for the co-branded items. So this further shows how popular Genshin Impact is in China. And outside of China, Genshin Impact also appeals to gamers in the APAC region, Americas, and Europe. So as mentioned, other big game companies in China like Tencent and NetEase are also very ambitious to develop their own console games as well, on top of the investments and acquisitions that these companies have made into existing console developers. For example, Tencent's Tianyi Studio, the studio behind Arena of Valor and COD Mobile, will develop Pokemon Unite, a mobile game on Nintendo Switch. Additionally, Tencent's Lightspeed and Quantum Studio, the studio behind PUBG Mobile, also released SYN, a tech demo of an open-world first-person shooter game marketed for PC and console gamers in China, now also outside of China. And these 2 studios from Tencent have proven their abilities in mobile gaming development, and now they're all moving forward to console. And on the NetEase side, in June 2020, NetEase announced the establishment of the next generation console game development studio, Sakura Studio in Tokyo, and immediately NetEase started their recruitment in the Tokyo office. And this is the first studio within NetEase to focus on the development of console games, showing NetEase's desire to be in the console games market as well. So what is the current state of the console games market in China? In 2020, less than 1% of total games revenue in China came from a console, and there were 36 million console players in China. Although it is a relatively small market in China compared to mobile and PC gaming, there's big growth potential, especially for games on Nintendo Switch. So Tencent has become the official distributor of Nintendo Switch and its games in China since December 2019. And by the end of 2020, Nintendo has shipped over 1 million Switch consoles in China, making Switch the most popular gaming console, in the country. And 16 Switch games were approved in 2020 by Chinese regulators. If we look at the graph on the right, more than the number of approved games on the PlayStation and Xbox combined in 2020. And Chinese developers, domestic developers, are also more focused on Switch game development compared to games on PlayStation and Xbox. So in 2020, 9 out of the 16 approved games on Switch are from domestic Chinese developers, in comparison to 7 on PlayStation and only 2 on Xbox. And of course, one thing that every game company has to deal with in publishing games is the regulations. So in the past few years, China has taken stricter control over game content across all gaming platforms, including PC, mobile, and of course console as well. For example, China has banned the sales of Animal Crossing entirely in the country after players in the game touched upon sensitive political topics. And a few days after the ban of Animal Crossing in China, the country also announced stricter regional lockout for all games, meaning that Chinese gamers will not be allowed to play games with players outside of China. And on PlayStation, the Chinese PlayStation store was suspended on May 10th, 2020, after someone reported PlayStation's backdoor to Chinese regulators. Via the backdoor, Chinese gamers were previously able to bypass censorship and connect to foreign servers. So 2 weeks after the suspension, Sony released a software update in China and officially closed the backdoor for Chinese players. As we see from these two cases, China is definitely taking stricter control over gaming content. Now let's take a look at the PC games market in China. In 2020, 32% of total games revenue in China came from the PC gaming platform, and there were nearly 400 million PC gamers in China. However, the share of PC games market will gradually be taken away by mobile as well as console in China over the coming years. In 2023, 26% of all gaming revenues in China will come from PC compared to 32% in 2020. So it will become less and less in China in terms of market share. However, China is still the world's biggest PC games market. So Valve Steam, as indicated in Valve's Steam hardware and software survey in December 2019, the simplified Chinese is the most used language on Steam. Over 37% of users have their language on Steam set to be simplified Chinese. But again, the market is getting increasingly regulated, as we just mentioned. After 2 years of development, Valve officially launched the Chinese version of Steam in China in early February 2021 in partnership with Perfect World, the local game developer in China. And the launch of Steam China is seen as to attract more local players in China, and more importantly, to minimize the potential risk in the future that would potentially be caused by strict regulations in the country. although Valve will reportedly still keep the international version of Steam accessible in China, it is likely that regional lockouts will have to be applied in the future. As expected, only games have been approved by Chinese regulators are accessible on Steam in China. Meanwhile, Steam China does not provide social features such as Steam community, which will potentially affect the game mode design and the secondary game market among gamers in China. Notably, the anti-addiction system is featured on Steam China as well, like all the other games and gaming platforms in the country, to curb time and money that players under 18 spend on gaming. On the other hand, Steam China will potentially challenge Tencent's WeGame in PC gaming distribution in China to attract more high-quality content. Tencent announced recently that WeGame will not take any revenue cuts from standalone or creative games under 10 million RMB, which is $1.6 million revenue, if the games are developed by local Chinese studios and are first released on WeGame in China. So yeah, that is all for today's presentation. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.
Tianyi, thank you very much for a very detailed analysis then on all the latest trends. Fascinating stuff, and a couple of things that jumped out at me. Before I do that, there was a question from Ian in the chat today asking whether the numbers that you displayed for games revenue, did that include in-game advertising revenue? Is that purely store-based revenue?
Yeah, that's purely store-based revenue.
Okay, so the market, you know, this is the largest market in the world, and it's even bigger when you add in those other factors. And you did mention on a couple of occasions the increased government regulation on requiring games to get an ISBN, a barcode, to be released in the Chinese market. We've known that for a while, but the grey market is still absolutely enormous. Now, I'm not here to talk about the grey market in China, but if you can imagine the revenue opportunity for companies, the market's even greater than you're reporting, simply because of those unauthorized sales that go through, particularly on PC and console. So fascinating market, enormous numbers. Do you know, you talked about a sort of a trend towards higher quality content, AAA content. That's great for places like the UK, where we've got some of the best games in the world being developed. Why do you think we're seeing that trend in China, that consumers are moving towards AAA content?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think one of the biggest reasons, the most important reason, is that you know, Chinese consumers, Chinese gamers are increasingly having access to game content across the world, and with mobile being the biggest platform in the country, but with increasing access to, you know, premium game content starting from mobile, Chinese gamers are also having growing appetite for AAA gaming content on other platforms, including PC and console. And we also see like a big potential for cloud gaming to take off in China due to the growing appetite for AAA content.
Yeah, it's still a bit of an unseen sector, the sort of the cloud gaming market and the revenue generated from that. That's something we need to dive into and find a little bit more information on. So a great opportunity there. Thank you very much for your presentation today. And for the audience, Tianyi will be sharing her slides with me afterwards, and I will distribute them so that you can dive into them in a little bit more detail, and her contact details will be on there. So feel free to reach out and ask any additional questions.